Welcome to the Docker video. In this video, I am going to tell you everything you need to know about Docker. Hi, I am Mansi Jain and this is my cloud computing assignment done under the guidance of Dr. Vivesh Srivastava sir. So let's jump in and get started. In this section, we are going to talk about what Docker is and why it is so popular and what is the architecture of Docker. So, what is Docker and why is everyone using it these days? Docker is a platform for building, running, and shipping applications in a consistent manner. So, if your application works on your development machine, it can run and function the same way on other machine. We all have probably come across this situation where your application works on your machine but doesn't somewhere else. Can you think of reasons why this happens? Well, this can happen if one or more files are not included as a part of your deployment, as if something is missing. This can also happen if the target machine is running a different version of some software that your application needs. This can also happen if the configuration settings like environment variables are different across these machines. And this is where Docker comes to the rescue. With Docker, we can easily package up our application with everything it needs and run it anywhere on any machine with Docker. So, if your application needs a given version of Node and MongoDB, all of this will be included in your application package. Now, you can take this package and run it on any machine that runs Docker. So, if it works on your development machine, it definitely gonna work on your test and production machine. Now, there's more to this. If someone joins your team, they don't have to spend half a day or so setting up a new machine to run your application. They don't have to install and configure all these dependencies. They simply tell the Docker to bring up your application, and Docker itself will automatically download and run these dependencies inside an isolated environment called a container. This is the beauty of Docker. These isolated environments allows multiple applications use different versions of some software side by side. So one application may use Node version 14 and another may use Node version 9. One more benefit, when we are done with this application and don't want to work on it anymore, we can remove the application and all of its dependencies in one go. So in a nutshell, Docker helps us consistently build, run, and ship our applications. Let's talk about architecture of Docker so you understand how it works. Docker uses a client server architecture. So it has a client component that talks to a server component using a RESTful API. The server, also known as the Docker engine, sits on the background and takes care of building and running Docker containers. Now, let's talk about the development workflow when using Docker. So, to start off, we take an application and Dockerize it, which means we make a small change so that it can run by Docker. How we do that? We just add a Docker file to it. A Docker file is a plain text file that includes instructions that Docker uses to package up this application into an image. This image contains everything our application needs to run. Typically, a cut down operating system, a runtime environment like Python, Node. It also contains application files, third party libraries, environment variables, and so on. So, we create a Docker file and give it to Docker for packaging our application into an image. Once we have an image, we tell Docker to start a container using that image. So, a container is a special type of process because it has its own file system, which is provided by the image. So, our application gets loaded inside the container, and this is how we run our application locally on our development machine. Here is the beauty of Docker. Once we have this image, we can push it to a Docker registry like Docker Hub. Docker Hub to Docker is like Git to GitHub. It's a storage for Docker images that anyone can use. So once our application image is on Docker Hub, then we can put it on any machine running Docker. So with Docker, we no longer need to maintain long, complex release documents that have to be precisely followed. All the instructions for building an image of an application are written in a Docker file, With that, we can package up our application into an image and run it virtually anywhere. Now we are going to see the implementation of it. I am going to use VS Code as my editor. Here I have created a directory called Hello Docker. Now in this directory I am going to create a file called app.js. In this file I am going to write a simplest JavaScript code, that is console log hello docker. So with this we are going to print a message on the terminal. Let's say this is an application and we want to dockerize it. So we want to build, run and ship it using Docker. Without Docker, if you want to ship this application to a different computer, then on that computer we need to install Node, and then we can go to the terminal and write node app.js and we can see hello docker as the result. So here, for running that application on a different computer, we need to follow some instructions. So here are the instructions for deploying this program. We need to start an operating system. Then we need to install Node.js, which is an execution environment for JS code. Next, we need to copy our application files, and finally we need to run node app.js. So we have to follow 4 steps just for a simple program. What if we were working on a complex application? You would end up with a complex release documents that had to be precisely followed. Now, this is where we make use of Docker. We can write these instructions inside a Docker file and let the Docker package up our application. So back to VS Code, we are going to add another file called Docker file. Here we write instructions for packaging our application. So typically we start from a base image. This base image has a bunch of files. We are going to take those files and add additional files to it. We can start from specifying the base image. So let's use node. Now how do I know these names? Well, these names are officially published on Docker Hub. So if we go to the official Docker page and scroll down to the bottom, here we can see Docker Hub. Clicking on it, we need to go to Docker Hub and search for node, and here you can see the official Docker image of node. Now coming back to Docker file, we can specify a tag name using a colon to specify which distribution we want to use for this demo. I am using Appline. You can use any one. I am using Appline because this image is very small. Where do I can see all these supportive tags? You can go to the official page and there you can see all the supportive tag names. Now we need to copy our application or program files that we use. So we use the copy command, copy./app. We are going to copy all these files from the current directory into the app directory into that image. Now finally we specify the working directory, work_dir/app, and we use the cmd command to execute a command, that is node app.js. cmd node app.js and save it. Now we go to the terminal and tell Docker to package up our application. So we say docker build/t to provide the tag name hello docker, and specifying a period to reference the current directory. Here you can see the Docker is building the package. Now to check the image, we type docker images or just image ls, and here we can see a repository called Hello Docker with an image that have a tag name latest. We can run this image on any machine. In this machine, I can say docker run hello docker, and I am expecting the output to be hello docker, and yes, we can see the output as hello docker. Now we can go ahead and publish this image to Docker Hub so anyone can use this image. Then I can go on another machine like a test or a production machine and pull and run this image. Let's see an implementation of how to pull an image from Docker Hub. So let's go to the Docker Hub and search for Hello World. Here we can see Hello World Docker official image. So I am going to pull this image to my machine. So in the terminal, I'm going to type docker pull hello world, and as an output, I'm expecting this. So let's hit enter here. It will first find the image locally. Since it is unable to find it, it will go to the server and pull it from the Docker Hub. We can see it has successfully pulled the image. Now let's run the image docker run hello world. Before hitting enter, I am expecting this to be the output, so let's hit enter, and yes, the output is hello from the Docker, the same as we were expecting.